And you're live, EMac.
So we're going out on. Oh, there we go. All righty, we're good. We're live. Sorry, guys, technical difficulties there, but we've got it. We've got it under control. We got a good game going on here tonight. We've got some decision points to be had. I'm joined by Matt Bellman. We're both in Florida tonight, but on opposite coasts here. I am on the Gulf side, and I believe you're on the Atlantic side. Or are you in Midland?
I guess whatever side you're on has better internet, because the internet problems are all on my end tonight. But we're here. We made it. I'm seeing you smile and laugh finally. So feel a lot better now. Finally made it through. Don't want to jinx it, but happy to be here. Short show tonight because I was dealing with some internet problems, but we're here finally.
Yeah, and we'll jump on in. We still got 40 minutes until lock is at 8:20 tonight. Boy, all I can say is you guys should jump in there and get those team free money lineups on DraftKings. Username EMac and the $1 head-to-heads. I've been getting my ass kicked. I crushed from Thanksgiving for about 3 weeks. I could do no wrong, and I have given so much of that back over the last 10 days. It's not even funny. But my wagering has worked out nicely. But yikes, DFS on the secret side has been horrible. DFS on DraftKings has been horrible. There are moments, and then I just get gutted. That's what happens, Matt, right? You go through the ebbs and the flows. You get these points where you're like, I'm never going to win again. And then you just start crushing. You're like, oh, yeah, I'm good at this. And then hubris gets crushed by your comeuppance at some point. The DFS gods do not like people to get too cocky today. But one last fun thing. We had lunch with a friend of ours who lives in Tampa. She lives in the same building as Bucky Irving. She was riding down in the elevator with one of her, I think it was one of her nephews. And he's older, but he was like, "Hey, I gotta ask, are you Bucky Irving?" He's like, "Yes, but don't tell anyone." He said, "Oh, it's a totally nice guy, but yeah, he's very super popular." So she told us that at lunch. She's like, "Do you know who Bucky Irving is?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's the guy running back on the TV right over there." She's like, "Yeah, I rode in the elevator with him yesterday. He was very nice." So there we go. But
he's so good.
Tonight, oh, man, if he just could have punched in that touchdown, that would have been nice. But that was a Baker Mayfield game. Woo, they were putting up some points there. All right. Rams 33. Come on.
I had a bunch of Baker Mayfield stacks. I actually played a bunch of lineups in the $20 Millie Maker today, and I had a bunch of Baker stacks with Thielen and Neighbors. I had a ton of, who was obviously really good, but I didn't have hardly any Jonathan Taylor because I used a lot of the Giants D, who was really good, but not as good as Taylor and the Eagles D. And, in that type of contest, you need to be perfect. And I also had a lot of Aaron Jones. He dudded, but we got a Showdown slate tonight to make up for it.
It is what it is. But we've got some exciting haps here tonight in this game. You've got Washington Commanders have a chance, I believe, to still take the division. They're going to need help now because the Eagles won today. But they have an outside chance because I believe they hold the tiebreaker, or there's a potential strength of schedule. In any event, that's an important one because whoever doesn't make it is going to fall down in the seeding a little bit. So that's key. And then Atlanta actually controls their own destiny, I believe. So that if they win out, they should get the NFC South. And they can still get there if they lose, but the path gets a little trickier because Tampa Bay won today. So there's a lot going on in this particular game. We have the inactives that came out, nothing unexpected, but it does. If best I can tell, I think KJ Osborne is active. So he was picked up 2 weeks ago. After being released by New England, Washington picked him up because Washington is without Diami Brown and Noah Brown. Noah Brown is on the injured reserve. Diami Brown played last week but got hurt. So this KJ Osborne could pinch McCaffrey here for playing time. Luke McCaffrey there. So that'll be interesting to see how that transpires. We've got Olamide Zaccheaus in a Remember Me spot, and he had a really good game in the last one. Jamison Crowder Hello, the true hero of the day. Zacky's had 2 touchdowns. So did Crowder, but Crowder scored with 6 seconds to go, and then Washington to give Washington the victory last Sunday. So a lot of points here, and you've got Jaden Daniels. I'm going to say that McDaniels more than once tonight. But you've got Jaden Daniels. He is by far the front runner in the offensive rookie of the year, like minus 10,000 to minus 20,000 on the different sites. He had 5 touchdowns in the last game. So we got a lot to break down here. On the other side, you got Michael Penix, who is starting again for Kirk Cousins. We did not see Penix do a whole lot in the last game. You're going to hear the people were just, and I'm a Washington Husky alum, so believe me, I love him, but he was okay. His best attribute was he wasn't a broken down Kirk Cousins. Now he's under the lights. It's his second game. He's got a team that can get after the quarterback here. This is the real deal. So this is far more of a test than we saw last week. Yeah, he looked competent, and he played 5 years in college, so with 3 different season-ending injuries, poor guy. But so he is a more veteran quarterback, much like Daniels is, who also played 5 years in college. But that's setting the stage for us here tonight. So let's start off with Michael Penix. What is your take here as he heads into Washington, D.C. in potentially rainy conditions?
I'm a Penix fan in general. I think there's a lot of unknown here, especially considering he's only started 1 game, as you mentioned, a really cushy landing spot against the Giants at home. So the real test comes today. And I know Cousins was not playing well, but in my opinion, in order for them to make that move when they did, Penix had to have been showing something in practice. And he was really good in college. I remember him when he was at Indiana, before Indiana became good, like years ago. And he was really good, continued to be good, and then was obviously phenomenal last year at Washington. I'm a fan of his talent. I don't think this is a bad spot. I like Penix quite a bit here. I think I like him more than like any one of his receivers. Obviously, London's the top guy, but I like Penix quite a bit here.
Yeah, and that's going to be kind of the interesting thing here is to see what he does. Now, key thing is he's actually pretty fast for a quarterback, but Washington basically told him, don't run. Don't take any chances. And he's like, the main reason he transferred there is they had obviously their receivers got drafted in the last year, but they had a good core of receivers and a good coach who now, ended up getting a much better job with moving on from the Huskies, but he went there to become a good draft pick. So this was all about him getting put in a great situation. So he's pretty polished, but this type of speed, right? This type of event can be tough, especially at this point in the season coming into it cold. So that's going to be kind of interesting. If we look at his, the running game for support, right? Bijan Robinson is going to be super important, but we've seen Robinson's pass catching slide each of the last few games. So that's a little bit of a concern because he is at, near apex salary, but he needs touchdowns to get there because we just haven't seen the passing volume. It's kind of disappeared a little bit. So the thing that you want to know is that the Washington defense, Jekyll and Hyde, Saquon Barkley, so in the last 5 games, Saquon Barkley put up 150, 146 yards against them. Rico Dowdle got him for 86, but then the other 2 games, Tony Pollard got 35, Tajay Spears 3, Alvin Kamara 12, Kendra Miller 46, and obviously, as we saw today, the Saints hate Kendra Miller because Clyde Edwards-Helaire got to play over him as well. But what are we getting here? Marshawn Lattimore is out. He's only played 2 games for the Commanders after being acquired midseason. But he is out tonight. But they had a couple defensive linemen and a linebacker that were banged up that should be playing tonight. So we're not entirely sure what we're going to get there. And then you have Tyler Algier. Over the last 4 games, he's averaging 10 carries per game. He gets between 8 and 11 a game, and he has about 36 yards. And we know he's a capable back, right? Because his rookie year, he had 1,000 yards before Bijan was there. So he's not really cutting into Bijan's workload, but this feels like there's enough offensive options around that it doesn't have to be solely on Bijan tonight. How do you break him down? Because I think your captain really is Bijan or Jaden Daniels here.
Yeah, like that would be the on paper two captains, but I do think that these teams like have a lot of guys who could be the top scorer here. Certainly Bijan, who's our favorite from Atlanta, uh, Jaden Daniels from Washington, but you told me Zacchaeus is the top guy tonight. I wouldn't be surprised. And then, Penix down to any of the Atlanta wideouts. So, yeah, I do think that it's a slate where it's pretty easy to get up to one of those top two guys, but I don't think it's a slate where it would be just absurd if they weren't the top two scorers on the slate. Just my opinion.
Yeah, and that's that's why we play these. That's why we like to do multiple lineups here, and that's something I've really embraced here with the tools at Stokastic. I've really gotten into utilizing the sims here. It has changed my approach. I was already into the mass multi-entry, but I've gone from even pre-sims hating the showdown slates to liking them, and now I love them. And with the sims, I the last few weeks I have been playing 6 or 7 non-primetime showdown slates rather than doing anything beyond like a cash game lineup for the classic slate, save for Christmas, when that reminded me why I don't like to do these short slates, because when you get your ass kicked, it's not fun. But for some reason, I've been embracing showdown. So these tools have found success for all styles of game here, right? You just got to figure out what works for you. And we've seen, 3 different millionaire maker winners this season using them in the NBA or the NFL full slate on DraftKings. So clearly it works for that. I'm having a nice year overall in the showdowns. So I'm enjoying that. You can play it with small field contests, etc. It's just great. So we've got, a bunch of ways you can get in on this, but our best is our link join here. And you can see it at the top of the screen there. That's the address. I'll drop in the address here into the chat. But that, if you sign up for any of the 11 partners that we have currently deals with on this, you can get 1 month of sims for a sport of your choice. Now, the instructions here, you want to listen. Now, these are written on the page, and this is the last time I'm going to say it. So this is your only ad you're going to get today. So no tomatoes, and pay attention. 1, look at any of the 11 team sites that are on there. See what you need to do. Some of them you have to make a pick'em card. Some of them you need to make a $5 wager, $10 wager, whatever it is. You're also going to get sign-on bonuses from these sites if you have not yet joined them. All you got to do is sign up through our link, right? So go to this page, click through these buttons, and when you follow the instructions, when you settle your first bet or your first pick'em card, you do a screenshot of your welcome email and that settled wager, send it to support@stokastic.com, and we will get you 30 days all access sims for the sport of your choice, or Sims Max for the sport of your choice. And you can ladder this, right? If you sign up for 3 of these, you can get 3 months of NBA. You want to do 1 month of football and 2 months of NBA, you can do that, right? Just make sure you're sending in that information to support@stokastic.com. Very, very good way to go. Good way to go. All right. So let's talk about these Atlanta receivers. We've seen Ray McCloud get peppered with targets from Kirk Cousins because, hey, Cousins didn't have the time or the ability to throw deep. We've seen Drake London have a solid year. He was a little banged up in the last game, but he's not on the injury report at all. He was dealing with a sore knee. And then you've got Darnell Mooney, who has had like 4 good games, and he's just kind of been a guy the rest of the time here. And then you have Kyle Pitts, who's been an absolute disappointment after all of the best ball and season-long fantasy people talked them into him this year because it was going to be the quarterback that made him better, and it was going to be the new coach that made him better. And he just hasn't realized on his talent here. So he's very disappointing to the point that Charlie Warner is actually becoming a little bit of a threat to him because Warner's a much better blocker and he's been on the field almost as many snaps as Pitts. So what do you think of the Atlanta pass catching options here?
I'm glad that you know how to string out a conversation because I thought we were having trouble for a second, but then you just kept talking and extended it. Didn't even realize that I was having trouble, which is amazing.
I'm trying to see if you're blinking. I'm watching to see if I know you're blinking, then I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I hate saying this. This feels yucky, but I like Pitts a lot tonight. Again, showdown slate. The consensus is that Pitts stinks, and I'm not going to argue it with anyone that says he stinks. He's a huge bust. Was taken way too early in the draft. but Washington is awful against tight ends, and it's a showdown slate. I mentioned, when we talked about Penix, we don't know who of his receivers he's really going to go to yet. It could be Pitts. Like, I know Pitts doesn't play as much as we'd love, but he's still, like, when he's out there to catch passes. And I'm going to take a contrarian Kyle Pitts here. I like him quite a bit. And his price tag just in general.
All right, so the book against Pitts, he's barely even in the top 20 for total fantasy points. Over the last 7 games, he had 24 targets, 12 receptions, 124 yards, no touchdowns. So, but again, we saw today a bunch of, oh my God, that guy's still on the team or that guy's in the league getting touchdowns. That could totally be Kyle Pitts, right? He's got the pedigree, he's got the background. It just, for whatever reason, it's not working out for him. But that doesn't mean that can't all come together for one night. And one night of 5 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Wow, that's going to be perfectly fine because his price has pushed down enough on the sites that he has become incredibly
if he does that.
enticing.
Oh, yeah. If he goes for 570 and a touch, you're speaking my love language there. Like, and it's unlikely he does that. But he has that in him, and he's not going to be owned.
Yeah, and he's 4,800 on DraftKings. He's 8,000 on FanDuel. That's getting towards it's deep into the discount dandies. Not quite pump pricing, but it's close. It's close. So when you see someone that talented, now we get some decisions here, and that's where I think you're seeing him come into your lineups on that. Amongst the other 3 guys, do you have much of a preference? Because they're all appropriately priced for their skill set and opportunity. So it feels like there's no, that's the best deal that we have here. That's really not the case. If we look at McLeod is $3,000 cheaper on DraftKings than Darnell Mooney, but it's only $1,000 on FanDuel. So FanDuel, it's kind of a coin flip. Yeah, you can make the argument for McLeod to get that savings, but remember, a lot of what he was getting was because of Kirk Cousins' limitations, and not because Ray McLeod is the engine that is pushing this offense. So.
No, yeah, it's hard to you don't see this in NFL often, where you can't. Certainly we know that Drake London is their top guy, but quarterbacks have their guys. We don't know who Penix is working with, for a lot of the season. Could it have been Pitts potentially? We know it wasn't Drake London, but Drake London's good enough. But we don't know who Pitts' preferred, guys are. And that matters a lot when targeting wide receivers from teams. So what I'm trying to say, my long-winded way of saying is there's more unknown for these wideouts than there normally would be in week 17 of an NFL season.
Indeed. All right, let's flip over to the Washington side here. We got 22 minutes until kickoff. We have Jaden Daniels, who has been sublime, to say the least. So I was back when I was living in Virginia. I was there during the Robert Griffin III phase. This is very similar to this, right? He's just got the town fired up. Now I'm all the way down here in Florida, so I'm not getting to enjoy it, but it's kind of electric. So I still talk to all my work friends who grew up in Virginia and stuff, so they're huge fans, and they're just like, oh my God, it's just like when RG threw it. They're different players, but it's like we have hope. No more Dan Snyder this time. They're like, this is great. So that's always fun to see. 8 different quarterbacks have thrown for multiple touchdowns against Atlanta, including Bo Nix, who got 4, and Sam Darnold, who got 4. Right, so Daniels he's got his work cut out for him, but he's done pretty well on the touchdown front and also on the rushing front. He has 3 different games with over 80 yards rushing. I think his best was 86, but 3 times this year he has reached 80 yards rushing, including last week. That's pretty impressive. You've got a sort of consolidated running back room, meaning that Brian Robinson Jr. is the lead back because Austin Eckler is on the injured reserve with a concussion. But we've seen Jeremy McNichols kind of pop up here a little bit. Chris Rodriguez, he's definitely the third back. The only way he's going to get anything if there's mop-up duty, and if these offenses do what we think they're going to do into keeping the game close. We don't know if it's going to be high scoring, low scoring with the weather, but I think it's going to be a close game. He doesn't really have a path to get there. On the wide receiver front, Terry McLaurin already has 1,000 yards, so he's not Mike Evans. Sadly, he only had 900 yards his rookie season, or like 980 or whatever it was. But he's got 5 straight years of 1,000-yard receiving seasons. He's got 12 touchdowns. He has just been an amazing option with Daniels here because he can score from anywhere on the field. He just has to get in the seam, and then he's gone. But after him, what do we do?
You think he's as good of an NFL wide receiver as Evans?
No, I do not. I think Evans is definitely Hall of Fame material, and the fact that he's been doing it for so long, it's great. I think it would have been fun in this, especially this pass happy phase, that if he had been similarly chasing down Evans for the 1,000 yards, he probably is going to get another.
No, I know what you were saying. I was just thinking about it. Because I think McLaurin, I think Evans is better, but McLaurin is on his level. Like, I don't think that. Like,
these aren't cheap.
I think that
Remember, you
like
go look at who was
end.
throwing him the ball. Yeah, there was just garbage throwing him the ball. So
for sure.
But the guy who's been garbage, Luke McCaffrey, and now, as we mentioned, KJ Osborne is in the mix. We don't know what's going to happen. Anybody tells you they know what's going to happen with KJ Osborne, they're crazy, right? But he is an effective receiver. He had, moments, I guess, is what we'll call them, with the Patriots. He was the wide receiver 3 in Minnesota, right, before things got super crowded there. So he's a capable rotational piece. And then the ageless Jamison Crowder is around as well. Started his career a gazillion years ago with Washington. He's back. He played for them last year. But people are like, where was he last year? Wasn't he at Buffalo? No, that was 2 years ago. He actually was with Washington last year. But he's kind of popping up now, as well as we're seeing a lot of attrition. And then we get to the tight ends, and I'll let you put a bow on this. But the tight ends, you got Zach Ertz, just keeps chugging along. Ben Sinnott, very disappointing, has hardly done anything. And then who's the other guy? John Bates. So Bates is mostly a blocker. He plays about 40% of the snaps, but he doesn't get very many targets. Ben Sinnott is out there between 15 and 25% of the snaps. It's varied throughout the season, but he doesn't really get any looks. It just continues to be Zach Ertz, who is a credible play here. And I believe he's, if I remember correctly, like 4,000 on DraftKings. He's intriguing there as well. So I'm tossing it to you. Considering the prices, where do you like Ertz versus Pitts? Because they're not that far apart on DraftKings.
No, but also considering ownership, Ertz, I think, is going to be – Ertz is projected to be 36% owned. Pitts is projected to be 15% owned. So, yeah, like if I were playing a cash lineup, I would play Ertz over Pitts. But I'm not. And I think Pitts is higher upside, even though, like, Ertz might outscore him 4 out of every 5 games. But on that 5th game, I think Pitts has a ceiling that Ertz doesn't have. My favorite Washington weapon, price considered, is OZ, Zacchaeus. Again, there isn't much to really get excited about outside of Terry. I'm a huge Terry fan, but he's expensive on a slate with, like you mentioned, 2 clear top guys in Bijan and Jaden. So I like OZ at 6,400. Certainly, if price weren't an issue, McLaurin would be my favorite. The price is, so give me Zacchaeus at 64 as my favorite Washington pass catcher.
So I am playing cash games, and I was not able to get Zacchaeus in, so I had to settle for Zach Ertz. I see there are 4 left.
That's
the $1 head-to-heads DK lobby. Grab those, enjoy them, take my money. I'm just giving it away over the last 10 days. Literally, I might as well light this on fire. Defenses and kickers. So kickers, good God, how are we scraping the bottom of the barrel with these kickers? Both of them have played for multiple teams. I mean, how Zane Gonzalez was out of the league for 2 years before he got on the Washington
Browns legend.
Squad. Yeah, he's played for some rough teams there. So he got called up to replace Austin Siebert, who got hurt. So that's sort of how Zane Gonzalez has
Browns practice squad legend Siebert.
Yeah. So in his career, He's 11 of 19 from 50 plus. That's only 58%. Not good, right? There's a reason he was out of the league. And then you have Riley Patterson. So Riley Patterson was replacing Younghoe Koo, who was one of my favorite kickers. I think he's incredibly talented. Patterson has been with, and some of this is practice squads, but he has been with Minnesota, New England, Washington, the New York Jets, and then twice, 2 different stints with Atlanta, 2 different stints with Cleveland, 2 with Jacksonville, and 2 with Detroit. He has been in the league for quite some time. He just doesn't play very much because tonight, despite being on all those teams, is his 43rd game. So he also has 0 distance. He has just 7 attempts from beyond 50, but his kickoffs aren't that great either. Now it'll be different with the newer rules, but he couldn't make it teams for any reason. He's good enough to stick around. He's great from 40 and in, but that's not what kicking is these days. So this is one where it's, field goals are incredibly fickle. And could one of these guys get 5 field goal attempts and make all 5? Sure, we've seen stupid stuff that happens at that, even with bad kickers. But these are normally I get excited about the kickers that are good. These are not good kickers. When we look at the defense, will the real Atlanta defense please stand up? 11 sacks over the last 4 games. And I think they have, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Where is Atlanta? So Atlanta, I don't have my right notes, but Atlanta basically has 2/3 of their sacks on the season have come in the last 4 or 5 games. It's crazy what has happened with them. Washington has been up and down, but they end up right around league average with their defense, but they've been moving in and out a lot of parts. And of course, as we mentioned, Marcus Lattimore is not going to be playing tonight, or Marshawn Lattimore is not going to be playing tonight. So the defenses, I think, are okay. It's hard to get overly excited about either one because we've seen that the Atlanta game is good. The game plan is to not give up sacks. And even when they had slow Kirk Cousins, they weren't giving up a lot of sacks. Penix is mobile enough in the pocket. He's polished enough that I think he will throw the ball away rather than take sacks and try to extend plays. Will he make rookie mistakes or do other things? Yes. But I think he's going to limit the sacks here, which makes it a little tougher. But I don't know what how to decide with the Atlanta defense because Daniels has had several multi-game sacks where he's allowed multiple, and I think he had 8 the other week, a couple weeks ago, which is just not good. So it doesn't jive, right? The equation doesn't balance. I don't know what we're getting here, which is just making my brain fry. But I guess I'm slightly going with the Atlanta Falcons with the hope that they can generate sacks, which they didn't do for the first 2 months of the season.
So I've got some different takes here. So one thing that I disagree with you on, kicker, in my opinion, unless you're talking about Justin Tucker of old or a Brandon Aubrey, I don't really care who the kicker is, as long as I feel confident that they're going to trot these guys, whoever the kicker is, out for long field goals. And I don't feel good about that tonight, but not because of who the kickers are, but because of the weather, which we haven't talked about yet. And that makes me like the defense is more. I think it's supposed to be kind of windy, wet, not conducive for kickers. It's a showdown slate. I'm not going to take them out of my pool. But to your point, neither of these guys are kickers you're going out of your way to roster an Aubrey last week. So I like the defenses slightly more, but I don't love the defenses either because I don't know. It's Atlanta's defense, I think, has just gotten into some good spots, like last week against Drew Lock on the road. Atlanta was at home. Their defense hasn't been great this season. I mean, they've gotten carved in a lot of their games. And then Washington, I like this Atlanta offense with Penix behind center. I will say, though, to your other point that you mentioned, we don't know who Penix is yet. So there might be more rookie mistakes than we think in there. On a Sunday Night Football game, a lot to play for. Unlike last week where he got that, basically landed on a pillow facing the Giants. Here he's on the road, Sunday Night Football. That in itself just makes me kind of more interested in Washington's defense than Atlanta's.
That's fair. That's fair. And you say bad things about Drew Lock. He had the 300 yards today and 4 touchdowns. That Drew Lock.
I used a ton of Drew Lock today, and he was in my best lineup. But again, still, he is prone to throw interceptions, and Atlanta was at home last week. Drew Lock was at home this week. I think that matters more than people like to give credence to.
All right. You know what also matters? When you're using the Sims, you need to pick the right slate. I just simmed out the Jets and Buffalo Bills. That's not going to help me for tonight.
Contest open for that slate? Because if so, I'd love to join.
Oh, yeah. Let me restart this. Now we need the countdown clock from Jordan. Does EMac get his line?
That usually happens to me when I do it, and I mean to do Showdown, but I instead do the classic slate.
The classic? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see if I'm missing. No, not missing any super chats. Hit that like button, please, while you guys are here. We appreciate all of you for joining us on a Sunday. We've got a busy week coming up here. A lot of NBA. They're coming back to center stage after having their slightly wonky schedule with the holidays. So everything's going to be back to normal. And there's no Thursday night football this week. There's no Monday night football. It is all Sunday for week 18 for the NFL. One of the games will be flexed to Sunday night football, so you will get that. But we get all the teams playing in 2 waves. So that I wish the sites would break this into 2 slates. That would be really fun with bigger contests, but they won't do that. That's okay, but you're going to get pure chaos for week 18. So you'll want to be in on that and ready for it. Let me kick this off. All right. So who is your favorite captain if you're building 3 to 5 lineups tonight? Oh, this could be an EMac show. I see he's not blinking. That means he's frozen. So my favorite captain tonight, I'm going chalk donkey style here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through as I am making these here. Oh, Matt, are you back with us? There you go. Who is your favorite? Yeah, who's your favorite captain if you're building 3 to 5 lineups tonight?
If I'm building 3 to 5 lineups, I'm going to say 3 guys. So,
okay.
Jaden Daniels, Pitts,
okay,
and I got to say Bijan. So, Daniels, Pitts, and Bijan.
And that's kind of
close fourth, though.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting because that's where it looks like I'm shaking out as well. And the interesting thing about I hand built a few lineups using the single lineup sim because I think that's fun to play around with, and it also helps you understand the makeup of the slate and the different things are happening with it. But I was noticing that it was not that hard the way the pricing worked that I could, if I had Daniels as my captain, I could flip to Bijan or vice versa with the way pricing is shaking out. So I think that could not artificially, but I think it's going to make those 2 guys rather popular here. So, check out your lineups as you're building them out, because that is a way, if you have a lean towards one or the other, you can make the lineups both ways with that and still have some differentiation, I think. Who is your favorite of the discount dandies? Who's your punt plays?
I mean, it's got to be Pitts. Like, Pitts is in that discount dandy bar drawer, as you mentioned earlier. So why do I need to go deeper than Pitts? And man, like, looking at his game log, it is tough to click Pitts. But everyone's looking at the same thing. And again, on these showdown slates, especially when you're playing the big contest, you got to get weird. You just got to.
All right, so what I've started doing here, I'm going to build my lineups real quick here. So I do I focus on the captains and or the multiplier slot, because I like to cap those. This is sort of how I'm approaching it with the Sims to help maneuver things where I want them to be. So Daniels, I'm coming in at 32%. The field is at 23%. I'd like to be closer to the field on that one. So I'm going to set him at 25 so I can go a little bit higher. Bijan, the field is down at 18 or 17. I'm at 18. I'm going to put that at 20 because I'm okay with that. Brian Robinson Jr. surprisingly is popping up. I'm okay being above the field. You're looking for a 2-touchdown game. That would be like a different type of build. McLaurin is around 10%. I'm going to go 15 there. Ertz, I don't know that I want Ertz in captain, so I'm going to go below the field. Drake London, I will match the field at around 10%. Penix, I'm going to keep around 5. I don't know that he does anything with his legs, and we kind of need that rushing upside there. I don't want the kickers. Zacchaeus, okay, that's fine. Crowder is fine. Why am I not seeing Pitts? Oh, I got no Pitts. Interesting. So did you need to boost him to get him there?
I did need to boost him. I boosted him significantly.
All right.
I mean, listen, you give someone on these showdown slates an extra like 1.5, you're going to get a lot more of them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and on the showdowns, it acts very similar to NBA, just because one point,
right.
2 points
yes.
really really affect things. And even though we're running through these sims tens of thousands of times, it creates some. It really is. It's almost like double counting. It's having a huge multiplier effect there. All right, so let's do that. So the other thing I've learned, so I'm still only getting a couple percent of Pitts, and even though I gave it an ROI boost. So the other thing I've learned, and since I'm in a hurry, and I thought these are tricks that are kind of fun. So I'm going to build 100 lineups. I can ask it to give me 95 lineups, and then I can just go pick 5 Pitts lineups that I want, or 10 Pitts lineups, however I want to do it. So I'm going to do that.
And again, Pitts is not for the faint of heart. I mean, you look at his game log and it is scary. It's scary hours. Like knowing you're playing this guy and he's like not that out of play to get you 0. But Washington is awful against tight ends. And again, we just don't know who Penix's preferred options are yet. And Pitts is still like a talented pass catcher, even if he might suck in a lot of other areas.
Yeah, and if we have to Ricky Bobby this thing, which we kind of do in Showdown, I don't mind that. So I'll be kind of keeping one eye on the clock here. We got 3 minutes. So it looks like I'm going to get about 7% Pitts in the captain spot. That will be just fine by me. So let me make sure that there aren't any other good ones. There we go. One more Pitts right there. And then let's go back up to the top. I know, riveting. Let's see. I'll take a Bichon. I'll take a Jaden. I'll take a McLaurin. I'll take a Bichon, Jaden, and Riley Patterson, just because. Export those 100 lineups and then upload them here. So does this feel comfortable? No, this most certainly does not. But you know what? Playing comfortable did not get me exactly where I wanted to be yesterday by any stretch. So it's a good reminder that, hey, we need to be smart about this stuff, and we need to be thoughtful here. So somehow I am going to be rolling with Kyle Pitts of all people. All right, so we get this uploaded. 2 minutes left here, Matt. Who is the person you are afraid you do not have enough of? Who is going to ruin your day?
Bijan Robinson. Like, I'm getting plenty, but I'm not at the field. And he clearly can break the slate. So Bijan would be the guy I'm like most afraid I don't have enough of.
Where did I end up on Zacchaeus? He was the guy when I was building out lineups. It was not making me feel warm and fuzzy. So
this slate is, again, like, I think the ownership is going to be real condensed on the guys that do make you feel warm and fuzzy. And it might play out that way, but a lot of times it doesn't play out that way on these showdown slates.
Yep, which is exactly what happened to me. So Zacchaeus, I have 1% in captain, 5% in the field. We're basically at lock here. The field looks like it's 22%. Now, I knew this was going to happen, so what I did do is I went and laddered his receiving yards. Even though there's crappy weather, I felt that was the best way to go after it. That worked out nicely for me today on a few of the people who I laddered things on, including Mike Evans, because I didn't have him in any of my lineups, Pitts, and Pierce, because I had downs in all my lineup. On the three sides, my main lineups each had downs. So I'm like, let me get some of this. Those all hit. I had a rushing quarterback that got there. They got Rattler. He just missed getting to the 50-yard bonus, but I ended up clearing about $300 on those by, doing like 10, 7, 5, 3. But the fact that Pierce and that Pittman both got 100 yards was very nice. So I think Pierce ended up getting there. Anyway, I hit them to their maximum. And I'm kind of limited on some of these on Hard Rock, but that because it's
look at you, Mr. Limited.
No, I'm not. I'm limited in my options. No. I'm still got a fishy enough account. Right? Yeah. But I'm doing lineup portfolio. Greg stayed on after the last show and gave me some tips on things I ought to do to make this a little bit better for me.
So good.
But yeah, that's kind of fun. Now I have been on the Prize Picks. They kind of cut me down to what I was doing, but that was way back when they used to allow, like, they'd put 2 or 3 players together and you'd get a home bonus points if they hit the home run. That was 2 seasons ago. Lindy and I did very well on that. He did way better because he was doing $100 bets and I was doing $15 and $20 bets because I have a deal with my wife. I don't redeposit it, so sometimes when I have to be judicious with the money. I move it between the different accounts. But the other thing down here, well, she can tell because she does all the credit cards. So it's not like, but all my money goes into the account where I'm the one that works. She's retired. So it's like, if I really want to, I can go it. But it's kind of the thing. And then she just doesn't pester me about it. So you do cash advance charges when you deposit into Hard Rock here. So I've learned I can put it in on PayPal. Yeah. It looks like. But that's
you
a word to the wise.
Like a Sportsbook and not. If you can, but you get the cash advance if you do that.
Yeah. And I was like, they wouldn't waive it. I'm like, well, you guys, it didn't pop up and say this was going to happen when I did this. They're like, you should know better, sir. And I'm like, all right, well, you know what? Then I'm not going to use the credit card anymore. You will drive up there and give them $100 bills, or fortunately PayPal.
That'll show them.
Oh, all right. We're at lock. So thank you, everybody here. We'll just X out of this so Jordan can get on his merry way. But Matt, hope you enjoy Florida. And are you there for the rep? Will I see you there next week, or will you be back in the cold climes?
I will be back in the cold in like 2 or 3 days.
All right.
But there's always something nice about going back home, so I'm not overly dreading it.
Indeed. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for patience with technical difficulties. Let's go watch Sunday Night Football, and we're going to do this all over again starting tomorrow. NBA and NFL in full swing. With that, gamers, good luck.